Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again on Itamar. This week's portion is called Chukat, and it happens to be my anniversary portion. This is the portion of the Torah that Leah and I got married many years ago, and it's a very special portion. For that reason, personally to me, of course, the entire Torah is so precious, and there are gems in every portion. But of course, this brings back memories and. Well, we're here. Let's talk about it. First of all, I want to focus on the topic of our discussion of this lesson is going to be called appreciation, learning to appreciate others. And I think that this is the real, one of the concepts that are hidden within the entire portion of Chukat. And I'll start by talking a little bit about the first commandment that's brought down here is called the red heifer, or paraduma, as we say in Hebrew. Zot chukat Torah. This is the chukah of the Torah. What does a chukah mean? Is a certain law that really doesn't have a reasoning behind it for us to understand as human beings. Something is way beyond our comprehension. And there are many laws in the Torah, as a matter of fact, that are in those lines of difficulty to understand what is the divine reasoning behind them. But in a very deep way, there's no doubt that God is giving a message and teaching us all that the entire Torah really is on this level. And that's why it says, Zot Chukat Torah, this is the ordinance of the Torah. It should have said this is the ordinance of the red heifer, or of cleansing oneself from being uncleanly. But it happens to say something very general. This is the chukah of the Torah, meaning that the entire Torah really should be looked at on a deep way of being a chukah. Because even if we learn reasoning behind different commandments, one shall not steal, one shall not murder, etc., these things are very logical. The human logic will tell you one should not do these things. But there's also, behind every ordinance really, it's divine. And certain times the human logic will give an explanation for something, and if the explanation they gave doesn't seem to be applicable at that particular moment, then they could actually rule out, God forbid, a Torah law. And our answer is that everything is way beyond our comprehension. We may give a certain reason, one of the reasons behind it, but the truth is it's beyond our comprehension. And that's the beauty of Chukah. And we're getting to the concept of appreciation, which I want to focus on. I think that one of the greatest questions that are asked around this red heifer is the question, why all those who are involved in doing the commandment of the red heifer actually end up being unclean. the whole thing behind the paraduma is to purify one who has become unclean to a dead person. And anyone who's involved in the different activities becomes unclean. And the question is, of course, why? And that's why it's called the chukah. Some things we don't know the answer behind it. But of course, although we don't know the answer why, but of course there's always many discourses and explanations that one tries to give, and we're allowed to do that. We're allowed to give partial explanations of things. And I have one of the explanations that I thought of that this will help connect us to the concept of appreciation. And I think it begins with this. And what am I trying to get at? Oh, should get at it already, yes. What I'm trying to say is that so many times we see people do, and they do for others, and they tremendous good deeds. But it's very hard for a person to look out of his own 4 cubits, as we say, to look at what other person does. Most of the time we're focused on ourselves. That's human nature, of course. But God wants us to look beyond ourselves. And that's one of our important duties in this world. And I think this is one of the messages behind the red heifer. Now, what does that have to do? First of all, when do we use the red heifer? The red heifer is used to purify someone that passed away, touch someone that passed away. So obviously, when you're looking at a person who passed away, a dead person, the first thing that comes to mind is, what has this dead person done in this world? That's when all of a sudden everything, all the reflection of his whole life comes back, and when a person goes to someone's funeral and there's a eulogy being given, you're focusing on the person's life and what he's done. So you're actually appreciating, but now maybe a little bit too late to appreciate that person if you said it when he was alive, but at least reflecting upon this person's life. And that's what brings this sort of feeling of being, this uncleanliness, I think. This uncleanliness comes from this fact that a lack of appreciation. We didn't understand, we didn't maybe take out enough moments while this person was alive to understand him, and therefore you become unclean when you touch this dead person. Of course, this is my it's an idea which I think is a very important idea, and I want to develop it more. You'll see how it really connects the portion together. And if we go on, we actually see that what happens, the person who prepares the red heifer becomes unclean. It's the same thing. It's like a person, he's really working towards purifying and helping do something. He's involved, he's doing something very important, working towards the purification process. And what's happening to him? He becomes unclean, like it's completely neglected. He's the opposite. He's becoming unclean. But wait, he did all the work. Yeah, but he's unclean. So it's hinting to that fact of what lack of appreciation, again, if you understand what I'm saying. And if it goes on, right after this, the commandment of the red heifer, what do we meet? It's really amazing. The Torah talks about a very, very special person. And unfortunately, it summarizes it in only just a few words. And what does it say? The Jewish people, they come, the entire congregation, on the first of the month of Nisan, and it says, and they come to a place called Kadesh, in the desert of Tzin, and there Miriam passes away. It says only a few words, Vatamot Miriam, and Miriam dies there and she's buried there. Nothing more than that. First of all, when does this take place? This takes place on the 40th year after the Jewish people have already been in the desert for 40 years. It's almost over the whole period of the desert. They're ready to go to Israel. And here Miriam, this beautiful, righteous prophet of Israel, passes away. And all the Torah says, of course, Torah is hinting to something very powerful here. It says she died and she was buried. And that's it. Torah purposely does not reveal more than this. The question is why. And what right away immediately grasps our attention and saying, wow, if we look at this same portion, just a few verses down, it talks about Aaron passing away as well. He passed away on Hoahal. And it says, first of all, it's a long explanation of how he passed away. Moshe Rabbeinu removed his garments, etc., much more length. And then it says, Vayu kol leida ki gavar, the entire congregation saw that Aaron passed away. And it says, Vayivku et Aaron 30 yom kulo beit Yisrael. And then it says they cried for Aaron for 30 days, the entire house of Israel. So here we see the entire congregation of Israel is taking place in mourning over Aaron and feeling the lack of Aaron. But on the other hand, poor Miriam. Where is the mourning over Miriam over here? She passes away and it's like she doesn't exist. It's very, 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 very painful to see that. And a lack of appreciating, that's what I'm going back to, appreciation. Where is appreciation of Miriam, our wonderful prophet? Miriam, who was at the water when Moshe Rabbeinu was laid in the Nile, in this little basket and waiting around to see what happened to her brother. She risked her life over there. And the same Miriam who comes out after the splitting of the sea with drums and dancing, celebrating, singing, and learning to appreciate. She represents appreciation. She represents appreciation. Miriam represents the side of appreciating. And that's why she led the women to dance when they came out of Egypt and they crossed the Red Sea. That's when the whole entire nation, Az Yashir Moshe Israel, and then Moshe Rabbeinu sang in the entire house of Israel, singing over the beautiful miracle of the splitting of the Red Sea. And this is Miriam, the one who knows how to, of course, that knows how to appreciate. And what happens immediately after Miriam passes away? Without appreciation, what happens right away? Right. The next thing we see, it says like this, V'lo haya mayim le'idah, there was no water to drink for the congregation. Why wasn't there water to drink? Miriam, in her merit, for 40 years in the desert, there was a be'er, there was a spring of water that followed the Jewish people in the desert. Because of Miriam's merit, they always had water to drink. And when she passed away, all of a sudden, the water stopped flowing. And if you look at her name is Miriam. Yam could also mean like a Yam in Hebrew means ocean, right? A sea. But here, so it's reflecting to the whole connection. It also has the same letters in Hebrew, Miriam, the same letters as water. Mayim is in there. Water's in there. So everything about Miriam is water, connected to water. Because water is Shef, is abundance. And when one receives that abundance, one should appreciate receiving that abundance. And she was in charge of that. That was Miriam. And unfortunately, because, and I want to say that the fact that Miriam was not appreciated, and she wasn't utilized properly, therefore the water stopped. That's why the spring dried up. Because no one realized where this bounty was coming from. The whole world, the whole obligation of a person in this world is to realize where our bounty, to appreciate God, to appreciate individuals, to appreciate where you accept where your bread comes from, and how we live. And that is why the crisis here of water sprung up. Right after that, the people again, a lack of appreciation, comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, we should have died, it says, why you bring us all over here to the desert to die? Again, complaining and not appreciating what they have and not having the proper faith. And what happens? Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded by God to take a stick, a staff, organize the congregation, that they all watch him. And God says, "V'dibaltem el hasan," you will speak to the rock in front of them. And then the rock will give its waters. V'otzeita, and you will take v'otzeita lemayim, you will take out water out of the cell, out of the rock. V'shkit et ha'ida be'iram, and you will water the congregation and the animals. V'yikach Moshe et ha'matem lefnei Hashem, and Moshe Rabbeinu takes the staff before God. V'yakilu Moshe v'Aaron et ha'kahal, and they brought everyone around the Selah. V'yom aleim shimuna morim, and he says to them, listen, hamorim, listen, rebellious people. From this rock can we take out water. Of course, they were building up to this beautiful miracle that's supposed to take place. And then Moshe Rabbeinu lifts the staff and hits the rock, and then he hits it twice, and the water comes out. And of course, we're going to go on in a minute why he was punished, Moshe Rabbeinu. But right here again, I think the hints that I mentioned before are hinted within this thing, and it's very, very deep in my opinion. Shimuna, Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, Shimuna hamorim. What is morim? Morim in Hebrew, the same exact letters of the name Miriam. Miriam, his sister. Now it's almost as if Moshe Rabbeinu was maybe hinting to them that, didn't you realize that in Miriam's merit we had water? Why didn't you properly eulogize Miriam? Why didn't you properly appreciate what she did in her merit when this righteous woman was alive? Of course, they've been going a little bit far, but I think it's hinted here very well. But not only that, I think that Moshe Rabbeinu as a leader, and like God will not give any kind of bikoret, criticism to Moshe Rabbeinu. But of course our rabbis here, and give many explanations, the Torah gives a criticism, why Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't allowed to enter the land of Israel after this act. And there are so many explanations given. And there's no one really knows the answer exactly. But I think here is also a hint. Moshe Rabbeinu could have turned Hamorim, listen, rebellious people, into Miriam. Listen to Miriam. Let's remember why we had water. We had water because of Miriam's merit. We have to learn to appreciate more. And that was a lesson that maybe Hashem wanted him to teach the Jewish people here. And then Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, this whole thing turns more into an action of anger. And then Moshe Rabbeinu hits the rock. And then, of course, he's punished by not allowing him to enter the land of Israel. And God says to him like this, Vayom Hashem el Moshe v'Aaron, God says to Moshe and Aaron, Yan lo imantem bi, because you didn't believe in me, lagdisheni le'nei bnei Yisrael, to sanctify my name in the eyes of Israel. L'chein lo taviu et ha'kahal hazeh le'aretz asher natati lem. You will not bring them to the land that I promised you. And it's very, very interesting that we know, obviously, and there's no greater prophet than Moshe Rabbeinu, and as in tremendous faith, Moshe Rabbeinu had tremendous faith. So how did Moshe Rabbeinu really fall? What was the mistake he made? Because he hit the rock instead of talking to the rock. So I thought of another explanation, and a rock is the most inanimate object you can get, right? A rock, so inanimate, so lack of life. And God was telling Moshe Rabbeinu, listen, hinting again, you must teach the nation of Israel, and even a rock. Listen to the rock, talk to the rock. Observance, appreciation, gets to the same fact. When someone learns to listen to something, listen to nature, look around you. Wow, the natural, gave him a staff in his hand. The natural actually hit that rock, of course, because that's what he did beforehand in the book of Exodus. But God was really showing Moshe to pay more attention. Here I told you not to hit the rock, but to talk to the rock. And to try to be more aware, to be more observant. Exactly what I told you. And that, again, being observant is appreciating. The more we observe what's around us and to see, we can be more appreciative. I think this whole concept is pretty amazing. And we see later on that they request to go through the land, the Edomite land, and this, of course, as a punishment. They weren't allowed to. They came out, they said, if you go through, we're going to come at you in swords, which means this whole concept of lack of appreciation, then you weren't at all appreciated. No one's going to look at you. No one's going to think about your strife and your difficult situation. Therefore, they were given the cold shoulder by the Edomites, which is a continuation of the same line. And then, of course, I mentioned before about Aaron passing off, which we saw. And then, of course, the famous story, and the Jewish people again were complaining, not appreciating of the manna that they received inside, when they were 40 years inside the desert. They didn't appreciate the manna they received. And what happened? God sent to them the snakes and the serpents. And again, this was a result of the lack of appreciation. So everything in this portion is completely connected to appreciating what's given to them. And if you go further, towards the end of the portion, I think it reaches sort of the height when it says, Az Yashi Yisrael, and then the Jewish people sung at the Shirazot, this song, Ali Be'er Enula. They made a song about the beautiful well, the beautiful spring when they got water. Be'er Chafu Asarim, a well that princes dug, and they were, of course, referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. Here, we see that finally there was a change made, and the change was to begin to appreciate. And they wrote a song and appreciating this whole about Moshe Rabbeinu, the leader now, because the well returned in Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu's merit. And now finally at the end they began to appreciate Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's why they're singing a song. Just like they should have sang a song over Miriam in the past. But now the nation wakes up. And therefore we see right after that, when the Sichon Melech HaEmori, when the king of the Amorites comes out, and they ask again to go through his land, he doesn't. They're successful in battle against them because now God is giving them back the abundance. You now appreciate, you now recognize, and now I will show you my appreciation. And God, of course, gives the miraculous strength of the Jewish people to win this battle against the Amorites. And that's how really this portion ends, which is actually amazing. So we see the whole thread that keeps everything here together, that just connects and sews it all together in this portion, is all about appreciation. And once we have that concept and understand that concept, then we will be successful in all our ways and endeavors. We should take this lesson, of course, to every realm of our lives. And look around in our homes and say, wait, every day I wake up, and we're supposed to say, thank you, God, for what you've given me, this beautiful, every breath you've given me in this world. Thank you, my wonderful wife, for being so good and kind to me, and helping me, and being there for me in every way. There's a great anniversary, of course, portion, as you see. It's all about appreciating. And my spouse, which I appreciate so much, and our parents who have given us life and sustenance and helping us, and our friends that are standing behind us, our people we work with. Let's appreciate them. They work hard, they sweat. And look around, just try to look out at ourselves and try to give a nice comment to somebody, a kind word to somebody every day when you see them. Thank you for doing that. Let's work on appreciation and we'll be in a lot better place. So have a wonderful Shabbat. I miss you all. And I'll see you soon. Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.